Oops. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Credit Chat Live. I'm Rod Griffin, Senior Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. I hope you all are all doing well and are well and safe. Thank you for being here. If you have questions about credit reporting and credit scoring or fraud and ID theft, all of those things that we talk about, please let me know. Sorry I didn't make it on Tuesday. I tried to be here 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern on Tuesdays and Thursdays and got caught up in some other calls and things. A lot going on. So apologize for that. Thank you for being here. Favored Anointed, thanks for being part of the chat today. And again, if you have questions, please feel free to ask. There's a lot happening in the credit world and in the financial world around COVID-19. And we know that you are all dealing with it just like we are. So, and as individuals, it's affecting all of our lives and all of our families and friends. So hope you're all doing well. Matisco 14, thanks for being here. Kachu 123, thanks for joining, being part of the chat. Please feel free to ask any questions you have about COVID-19 in your credit report, credit scores, or just credit report and scores in general. We are as here for that reason, to have a conversation and to answer your questions. Salon 62, thanks for being here and being part of the chat today. We know that there's a lot happening. We're going to be on Facebook Live and Crowdcast tomorrow, so look us up there. Every Friday now, 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern. Same idea. We're going to share information that we see, talk about some things, myself and Christina Roman and Jennifer White, and all of you who join us on Facebook Live and on Crowdcast. So check out Crowdcast, crowdcast.io, and search for us there, and join that conversation as well. And on Twitter's on Wednesdays, 2 o'clock Central, 3 Eastern. So lots of chances to talk to us, and that's what we really want to do. Central, thanks for being here. Hi, and thanks for being part of the chat today. Simpson Art, I have always had spotless credit reports with all three bureaus, but my FICO score with Experian has, and we need the rest of the question. Something has happened to your FICO score with Experian, so when I get the rest of the question, I'll answer it. Milik Mofo, thanks for joining. And so I'll come back to Simpson Art's question. How do you dispute something over 7 years old? Favored Anointed. First, I'd get your report. You can get a free report once a week now. So get a current copy of your credit report. You can do that at annualcreditreport.com. You can get a free one from Experian as well as TransUnion and Equifax. And then when you have that report, you find that item there, simply hit dispute and follow the instructions to dispute it. So it should have come off disputed as being older than 7 years. And when you do that, understand when the 7 year period starts. Sometimes there's some confusion. So just so people know, the 7 year period starts from the original delinquency date of the debt. So it's not the close date. It's not the open date. It's not the most recent reported date. There are lots of dates that can appear in a credit report. It's the date that the payment was late or that the payment became late and was never again current. That's the original delinquency date. So 7 years from that date, if you have a late payment, but you catch up on those payments, that one late payment would fall off, the account would not. If you become late, never catch up again, and the account's charged off as a loss, 7 years from that date, you first became late and were never current again, is when that time frame starts. So be sure it meets those criteria. Sometimes there's some confusion there. So we want to make sure that you look at that 7 year date, and we can help you do that. It's called the original delinquency date. And you will typically see with the account on the report, this account is scheduled to remain until, or this account will be deleted by, some language that says when it should come off the report. If it's sold to collections, the collection account should be deleted at the same time. They have to carry over that same date. So we'll keep those things in mind. Ms. E4, always great to see you. Thanks for being here. And good to have you as always. Moved down? I want to move up. got ahead of myself. I want to make sure I get to your questions. Paying your credit card bills off on time and my score goes down. Why? Okay, Chef Daddy. So as you're paying down those credit card bills, those debts, your utilization rate decreases, but there may be some other changes happening as well. If you're looking right away, don't do that. I just had a fly by. So the other day I had a fly land right on the end of my nose in the middle of a video recording. It was kind of weird, but leave it to me to have that happen. It's a fly is back today. Shep Daddy, if you're paying your credit card bills off, you're reducing those balances over time. If there are big changes, are there other things happening? So there's some other questions I would look into. Are you closing those accounts when you pay them off? If so, that could be the issue. Usually, when you reduce the balances on your credit cards, your scores will begin to go up. Now, if you make huge changes right away, so you pay them down, or say you have large balances and you pay them off completely, and there's a status change like that, scores might dip initially a little bit. Give it a few weeks, maybe a month, and then check. Maybe a couple of months. Usually, you'll see the scores rebound. Big changes can cause instability that can cause scores in some cases to go down a little bit first until they stabilize. So that might be a factor. There might be other issues too. I'm not sure. Depending on what else is happening in the history, if you've opened new accounts, paid things off. Another thing to do when you get that score is check the risk factors that go with it, because they'll tell you exactly what's happening. It might say that it will tell you what's going on. So it might not say the balances are too high. It could be other issues that are causing the scores to change. Also, and don't know where you're getting the scores, but be sure you're getting from the same place all the time, because if you get two different scores, and not saying this is happening with you, but just so people know, I've talked to people who've gotten a score, made a change, gone somewhere else and got a different score, and that's the problem, that they get an entirely different score from a different model or formula that shows a lower score, when in fact it would have probably shown an increase on the other one. So make sure you're looking at scores from the same places consistently, which I suspect you're doing, but it's always good to think about as well, because I've seen that happen from time to time. So look at those risk factors and give it some time, because time is a huge factor as well. And if there are other things that are changing at the same time, it could have something there too. So generally dip at first, but they usually come back up, and usually don't dip a lot. Usually don't, you don't see this tank. You usually see just a gradual decline and then a climb back up. So that's my guess. Peng, Too Funny Bro, thanks for joining. Matisco 14, I disputed late payments on my credit report, but they removed the whole trade line. Yeah, so not sure exactly how you disputed it. This could be a situation where the time frame was up or the account was closed. The lender, though, what would happen is we would go to the source, the lender in this case, and dispute on your behalf that the payments, you think that the late payment should be removed, and the lender may have come back to us and said, take the whole account off. So that's what we did, because we wouldn't do that proactively. That's in response to the dispute itself, unless the lender simply did not respond to us within the 30-day time frame, in which case we would remove that account, because those are the options. The lender must respond to the dispute within 30 days of receiving it. And if they do not, we are obligated under the Fair Credit Reporting Act to remove the account. Now, if they subsequently then do respond and tell us we just missed it, we need to update that information, we will restore, and it should be returned to the credit file. We can put it back on the report, and would put it back on the report, but we send you a notice when we do that so that you know that it's returned. So that may have happened as well. So a couple of things that might have occurred. But if a time frame isn't met, the score, the account can be returned to the credit report, so it doesn't remain off if it should be there. So it could be a couple of things there. Alicio 969696, thanks for joining. Too Funny Bro, who's the best to get a report from? Experian, that. I'm just a little bit biased there. If you're just joining, I'm Rod Griffin. I'm Senior Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. So I have a very definite opinion about that. So get your Experian credit report. Also get them from the other bureaus. They're free once a week now for the next year as we respond to COVID-19 and make sure people have access to that information. So please do that. Matisco 14, what can I do to get it back, please? So contact your lender as well. So reach out to your lender and say, hey, I didn't want my account to go away, and they should be able to return it to file. So notify them. And if it's not in our report anymore, we can't connect. We have nothing to tie to. So if we've been told to remove it, there's nothing for us to dispute or a way to contact that lender about that account anymore. So contact the lender, tell them, hey, it needs to go back. It just shouldn't have shown those late payments. And if the account's open and active, they should be able to report it to us. So, and it sounds like they were to begin with, so should come back. Jose HRDZ4, thanks for joining. Sense Central, what about medical bills from having coronavirus last year that's reporting negatively? So a couple of things. So if you have medical debts that are in collections, medical collections can be reported to the credit reporting companies. We do not include medical debts that are not in collection, so it would have to have gone to collection. We also hold those collection accounts for 6 months before we put them in the credit report. So generally, an account has to be maybe, at a minimum 6 months in collections before it's reported to us. So so there should be some time there. Check your reports if you haven't. Make sure it's actually showing in the report. It may not be. The other thing to know is that with medical collections, they're not treated the same way as other collections. They do not have as big an effect on credit scores in most cases, at least the newest scores. Once they're paid, they're excluded from the newest score calculations. So there are those benefits. But talk to the lenders, talk to the collection agencies. We do have resources under the COVID-19 crises response that can let them report those accounts as in forbearance or in deferment or some other payment accommodation is what we call them. So some other payment agreement. And as a result would be shown as in forbearance or under accommodation. And so they would at the very least be essentially frozen at that point, for lack of a better term. So they wouldn't become more delinquent, wouldn't have any additional negative impact on your scores, but talk to them about what they can do and how to work with them. You can always work with collection agencies and with your lenders and not worry about it having an effect on your credit reports or on your credit scores. I often hear from people, or used to, actually less often now, but in the distant past, I used to hear from people say they re-aged my account. Well, they can't do that. They can't change the deletion dates. They can't change other information. That's against the law and against our policies. So you can talk to them, work with them on how to respond. So don't be afraid to do that either, because it's not going to affect your credit reports or scores. C Drivers, thanks for joining. Which one is the best to see a report? So again, still very biased, but honestly, I think getting your Experian report, I think the format we put it in is the easiest to read, easiest to understand. So not just my personal bias in being an employee of Experian, but I've been told by lots of people that when you get your Experian report, it's much easier to read and understand than some of our competitors in many cases. So getting that report makes it very clear. It's very simple. Every account it's very, sort of simple layout. There's no coding. There's nothing you have to know other than I got my report and here's the account. It shows the name of the creditor. It shows the account number. If it's reported, it will show your current balance. It will show, all of the information. It's very simple, very easy to understand. So I would say honestly, and no kidding, I think Experian is the easiest one to read and understand, but doesn't mean you shouldn't get the others as well. Scrolling down, LaShawn B, thanks for joining. Awesome. Casey or Case, thanks for joining, and feel free to ask any questions you have related to credit reports and scores. I'll do my best to answer. Fraud and ID theft, which is another thing we're starting to see more of as people are going through COVID-19, which is a real concern. What I've been saying is that when things are hard and people are scared, are desperate for help, that's when predators come out. So be careful and be thoughtful there. The lender did not respond. That's why Experian moved it. Okay, so that's the issue. So you'll need to talk to them. They may tell us to put it back, and if so, we'll send you a letter or a notice that says it's being returned to file as well. So it may come back. Alon0921, thanks for joining from Brazil. Hope you're doing well there and staying safe and staying well. Experian Serasa is part of Experian. So I can't speak to the Brazilian credit reporting system. We have fantastic people down there who are counterparts to me who do great education programs and outreach, and probably, so look for them at Serasa. I am in North America and so can speak to the U.S. credit reporting system in the States, but I can't really speak to other parts of the world. They're all different in some ways, and so the rules, regulations, laws that apply can be a little different. So I don't want to say something that would be incorrect. Awesome, Casey, I have a very big problem. Yeah, so if you work with a loan shark, they won't do anything for us or with us. We wouldn't allow that. Don't know what to tell you there. Call the police, maybe if they're threatening your life. Something that's would certainly be not allowed in the U.S. and collection laws. Meat pie sausage rolls sounds delicious. Thanks for being here. Puma 20 and Sense Central, thank you for being here and asking, because the other thing that we know is that if you have a question, other people have the same issues, concerns, same questions, and so we can help share information more widely. And that's why we want to have this conversation. And it's really important to have the dialogue and to help share information. I've been late for a year on a mortgage, car loan, or revolving credit card, so that's lowering your score. So yeah, so Matisco 14, it will. The more delinquent, or the delinquent being a big word for late, the payments are, the more impact it's going to have on scores. The more of them and the different kinds of accounts, the more impact it's going to have. It's going to take longer to recover, but as you begin to catch up on those payments, begin to reduce your balances, are working with lenders, you will begin to see improvement. So it's not permanent. You can recover and can restore your credit history. So don't give up. First and foremost, don't feel like it's permanent. There are things you can do and actions you can take. Get help and get some objective advice too from people who can look at your report. So talk to the National Foundation for Credit Counseling and one of their members in your area. They can help you identify what you can do. They can work with your lenders to help you get back on your feet. So don't give up. Don't feel like it's the end of the world. It can be hard. I always tell people, I don't forget where I came from. Was playing the pay one card with another game and had debts I couldn't pay. And so I've been fortunate over the last 2 decades to actually work at Experian and better understand how this works and recover as well and get back into a better place. So I've been there, family that's there and has been there, and friends as well. So, it's something I always tell people, I will never forget where I started and that to let you know that you can recover. So know that and keep working at it, and we'll share information to do our best to help as well. I might have answered this, but how do you know the most important ones to take care of? So Too Funny Bro. So get a copy of your credit report. I don't say that over and over and over. Don't be afraid to do that. You can go to annualcreditreport.com and get a free one once a week now. So get that report. When you won't get a score with that report, but you could purchase one, or you can go to the Experian app, get a free score. And once you have the score, along with it, you should get what we call the risk factors. Those risk factors tell you exactly what to work on in your report and what's having the most effect. So if you get your score, the number's nice to know, gives you a sense of where you're starting. And then the risk factors will tell you exactly what you need to work on and which are having the most effect. And they're listed in order of importance. So if it says the collection accounts are the issue, if you can pay them off, that can help. And paid collections, once they're reported as paid in full, will be excluded from the newest scoring system. So you can immediately help improve your scores. So that could be an issue. If it says your balances on your credit cards are too high, that's the first thing. That's what you should work on first. So look at those risk factors, and you get 4 and sometimes 5. If you see a 5th one, that will be inquiries. That will always be the last one. But the law says we have to include inquiries if they have even a single point impact. They're always the least important. So don't worry about the inquiries so much, but focus on the risk factors in the order that they're listed. That's going to help you most. I've been requesting validation on accounts and only getting settlement offers. What now? So Tori Lynette 2000, from a credit reporting standpoint, you can dispute information with us. We'll go to the source if you believe it's inaccurate or is incorrectly reported. The source of the information, in this case, sounds like collection accounts probably, are the ones that have to work with you in the way that the account's reported. So they would have to agree to settlement or whatever it might be. Validation is something that it's a credit repair scheme that they talk about. I think 609 letters, things like that, and which has nothing to do with disputes. In the Fair Credit Reporting Act, Section 609, not related to disputes. And so you can send letters and ask them to validate, but if they own that account and it's being reported, it's up to them to make that determination. And if they report it to us, they meet the requirements for reporting, it's going to be part of that credit report. And so you can dispute it if it's inaccurate. You're not saying it's inaccurate. You're saying that you're asked for it to be validated. Honestly, what I hear from people is that, and what I see less than above board credit repair firms do or recommend to people is that, and I'm not saying you're doing this, let me be clear, but when I hear this, it sometimes confuses people. I'll make sure you're understanding what I see and that you're not being taken advantage of as well. That they'll tell people, we'll send a validation letter, and that all that does is they send a letter saying validate it, and it doesn't do anything. It's a scheme that's used. You can say validate my debt, but if they own the debt and legally due, they don't necessarily have to respond to that. So it's not going to affect the credit report in any way if that lender is reporting that information and they own that debt and they're complying with the law. So they would need to be the ones you'd work with to reach an agreement. And so if they don't want to settle the debt, or they don't want to do whatever it is you're asking in the validation, probably won't result in them being removed. So talk to them. It's kind of up to them if they in fact own that debt. But 3 months ago, I started paying everything on time. So Matisco 4014, we'll take some time doing the right things. If everything's paid on time, over time coming up a lot in this conversation, but if you're paying things on time and those balances are gradually going down, eventually those problem areas are going to get older, and the older they get, the less effect they have on scores, and the more effect the positive information that paying on time is going to have. So it will take some time, but you will begin to see your scores improve. And you paid everything to zero. So you did a lot of things that are really positive. Dr. Random Stuff, thanks for joining. So Matisco 14, you've done all the right things. Now I think it's probably just patience. So, the more delinquent things were, the longer that they were behind, and the higher the balances were and the longer they were behind, the longer it's going to take to see those scores improve. But you're doing the right things. And you probably, I don't think that's the issue in terms of lowering your scores. It's probably over time you'll see them improve. And doing those things will not lower your scores. So there's something else there that's missing and that I'm not aware of, or that we're not identifying, or that you're not seeing. So if your scores are going down, because they shouldn't be, unless you're taking on more debt while you're paying things on time. I don't know, but those risk factors are going to tell you what to work on specifically. But it sounds like you're doing the right things. What can you do more to boost your score? Thanks for that setup, though. One thing that might help is enrolling in Experian Boost. It's a free service that lets you have your positive cell phone payments, and positive being the key word, your on-time payments for your cell phone payments, your utility payments, so things like natural gas or water or electricity, reported as accounts to your credit report to help boost your credit scores. And what we're seeing is that for people with thin credit files, fewer than 5 accounts, or scores below 680 on a FICO 8 scale, see the most improvement. And we're seeing on average for thin files, people with thin files, about 19 points. And for the general public, 2 out of 3 are seeing an increase of about 13 points. So I should say 2 out of 3 are seeing an increase. And on average, it's about 13 points. So consider that. You go to Experian.com/boost and learn about that. And it's by choice. So it's with permission. If you decide you don't want to do that, you can have a stop, and we'll take that information off the report and won't do it anymore. So it's entirely up to you, and you control it. So look into that. Might be worthwhile. Now we're hearing really positive things. Not using more than 7% of your credit limit. So it sounds like you're doing the right things. The lower your balances, the better. So I think it may just be time that could be the issue. Basim Turkman, thanks for joining. Rupiandre, I'm probably not saying that right, but thanks for being here. P. Vladimir 9000, thanks for being on the chat and joining. Too funny, bro. If it goes to collections, do you still need to pay it? Yes. I mean, it's still a debt you owe legally and under contract. It's just a collection agency now owns the debt rather than the original creditor. That collection account will stay on your report 7 years from the original delinquency date of the original debt. So it's going to have a negative impact. If you can pay the debt off, and most of the newest scores and the most commonly used scores today, a paid collection will no longer affect the score. So there's always that discussion. You borrowed money from someone and under contract, and you had a legal obligation to repay that debt. If you did not, they can still attempt to collect. So there's the fulfilling the terms of a contract. So think about if someone borrowed money from you and agreed to pay it back and didn't, you'd still want to be paid. So there's that issue. And then you have the legal obligation from a contractual perspective for a loan. So you still are obligated to repay it. Whether you do or not, you'll have to tolerate the collection attempts and those sorts of things. But my perspective is, yes, if you can pay it, you should. It's going to help your credit history, going to help you qualify for other accounts in the future, going to help you have access to lower cost financial services in the future, which is a benefit to you. So a lot of reasons you should if you can. Yum Gunter, thanks for joining, being part of the chat. Adrian Reyes, thanks for being here. There's something in a report that I disputed Experian took care of it. Awesome. That's the thing we like to hear. Hello, people. Thanks for being here. And that's what we want to do. So check your other reports as well to be sure that it's not there. What should happen if you dispute information and information is changed, updated, removed from your report, the source of that information, usually a lender, is required to go to any other consumer reporting company they reported it to and tell them to remove it as well. So it should come off automatically, but it's a good idea to check just to be sure and be sure everything's okay. Andri, is it safe to buy cryptocurrency? Way beyond my scope. So can't speak to that and that kind of investment. If you're just joining, I'm Rod Griffin. I'm Senior Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. This is Credit Chat Live. I try to be here Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern, just to answer your questions about credit reports and credit scores and fraud and ID theft, all of those things that are so important, especially in a time like this, when we're all going through the response to COVID-19 and trying to stay safe and trying to stay well and still trying to manage our finances and facing potential unemployment or reduction in pay. And I have family members who have gone through that. So it's affecting all of us. So thank you for being, I know I'm saying so a lot, aren't I? I'm sorry. That's a good point. That's like, I hope there aren't any Toastmasters out there listening to me say, so we're counting that. What about old creditors trying to collect? Is there anything that can be done to stop the letters, etc.? So, Mimo Shell, you have rights under the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act to ask them to stop contacting you, particularly at a place of employment, for example, but you can notify them. So I'm not an expert in the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act. From a credit reporting perspective, they can continue to report that account as in collections. It would remain in collections, as I said, for 7 years from the original delinquency date. Check with your Attorney General's office in your state. They can probably provide more information about what your rights are and what your responses are. But don't be afraid of working with the collection agencies as it relates to your credit report, because you can work with them. You don't have to worry about it resetting the clock in any way. You don't in terms of when it comes off the credit report, they can't change information in the report as a result of talking to them or providing information to them. So don't worry about it from that perspective. I sometimes hear people say, I'm worried because I'll reset the time frame for it to be deleted. That won't happen. They can't do that. So please do work with them. No more debt, no collections, no charge-offs or inquiries. Boosted my score of Experian and got 18 points. Awesome. That's fantastic. So you're moving in the right direction. Patience, time. Yeah, I told a reporter, and I'm probably going to regret this because I'm sure it will be quoted when it's published, but I told the reporter, creditors find people who are dull, boring, and consistent with their credit and with their finances to be the sexiest people on earth, because that's the key to having good credit. Being dull, boring, and consistent, keeping your balances low, paying on time every single time. Spontaneity when it comes to credit is a bad thing. So you're doing the right things. So keep working on it. I'm sure things will get better. How many points are deducted on your score for each hard pull for credit? I'm thinking of buying a car. So there's my so again. I'm going to work on that. I don't know when I fell into that habit. Yum Gunter, you don't have to worry about that at all when it comes to buying a car. With auto loans or mortgage loans for years and years, when you apply for an auto loan or mortgage loan, the dealership will send your application to multiple lenders. They're going to request your credit report. There will be an inquiry added. The scoring systems recognize that you're shopping for one car or one house, and they either count all of those inquiries as only one inquiry, or that today at the newest scores, they don't count them at all. So you don't have to worry about inquiries when it comes to shopping for car loans or mortgage loans, so long as you do it within a fairly short period of time. I always recommend, if you're shopping for a car, that when you submit your applications, you've figured out which one you want, do it within about a 14-day period, so 2 weeks, and that will ensure that they have little or no impact at all on your credit scores. All the other things are going to be more important. Another thing to do is check your credit report and your scores 3 to 6 months prior to applying. That will ensure that you know everything is as it should be, that you're in good shape in terms of qualifying for the loans, meeting the requirements they have, having good credit scores, and so on. So be sure you do that and get that report. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for being here. I mean, that's what's more important. I can't spend enough time with everybody, and that's what I want to do. You know, I've told people I've been with Experian 23 years, so I picked up a few things along the way. I'm glad to be able to share it. I can do death by what I call death by PowerPoint with the best of them. I think they teach us in the corporate world how to do that. So I could talk for hours to a PowerPoint, never answer the questions you have. So that's what's so important here, is being able to answer your questions and to help you get the information you need. So I love doing this. One of the best things in my job. I won't say it's necessarily the best thing in my job, but pretty close. So thank you for being here, and thank you for that. Me, Michelle, old creditors of 7 years that have been paid off. So I'm not sure exactly what the rest of the question is, but if you paid off if you paid off a lender, if it's a collector, a collection account, that collection account should fall off 7 years from the original delinquency. I can't say that enough either. The date that the original account, the first account, first became late, 7 years from that date is when the original charged off account and the collection account should come off the report. So make sure you're looking at the right time to start that 7 years. Sometimes that's confusing. You want to make sure you're looking at the right 7-year time frame. It's not the most recent update date. It's not the date opened. It's not the date the account's closed. If you have an account that was closed but never late, it will stay actually 10 years from the close date. So we keep the positive information longer than the negative. So thank you all for the wonderful comments. This is why we're here. I've been doing this for a number of years, and now especially is really important to share information. So we're trying to do this wherever we can. As I mentioned earlier when I started, if I haven't since, you can go to ex.pn/creditchatlive and learn more about this Periscope, as well as our Facebook Live programs. We're on Crowdcast, so join us there as well. We're trying to build a community there. We're able to answer questions. We're hoping to expand that to do polls and some other things to really engage everybody and talk about what we need to know around credit, but also around what we're doing in terms of COVID-19. So crowdcast.io, look for Credit Chat Live there, and look for us on Facebook Live as well. We'll be there again, hashtag Credit Chat Live, and join us on Twitter on Wednesdays, 2 o'clock Central, 3 Eastern. You can learn more at ex.pn/creditchat about that. So tomorrow, 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern, we'll be on Facebook Live. I'm here at 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern, Tuesdays and Thursdays if I can make it. Usually Thursdays are working, Tuesdays are proving challenging, but I'm doing my best. And then Wednesday. So 4 days a week, we're out answering questions and engaging, and that's what we want to do. So thank you so much for being here and for the wonderful comments. Will opening a new account help? Matisco 14, it depends. Again, it goes back to those risk factors that go with the score. If one of the risk factors, and one of the first risk factors is too few open accounts or too few revolving accounts, that would tell you need to open a new account. If that is not one of the factors, that's not what you should do. So get those risk factors. That's going to be critical, because too often people will guess, and honestly, credit scores sometimes seem counterintuitive with what you see with the risk factors and what they're looking at that indicates you may not be as good a credit risk because of those things. And there can be as many as 300 risk factors for a particular credit score. So it's really important to look at that credit report and know exactly what is affecting yours in particular. The only real blanket advice you can give is pay your bills on time every time, keep your balances as low as possible. If I hear people saying do certain specific things and saying it affects everybody, I know that they aren't as knowledgeable about credit scores as they're saying, because they'll be wrong. There are 220 million people with credit reports. Everybody's a little bit different, and there are so many factors with scores that you need to look at those risk factors for yourself and see exactly what's applying to you. So that's really important. What should I do for a new FICO 10? Any changes should be made on your part? Proclaim. No. The reality is that scoring companies like FICO are always studying the marketplace, the things that indicate risk in lending, and they update their scoring systems, what we call scoring models, periodically. This is just a regular update. You won't see huge swings or huge changes in your scores either way, unless you are, well, even then, you're not going to see big changes in your scores. There's subtle changes in the way that the scores are calculated to reflect changes in the marketplace. People who are at the edges will probably be most impacted. So if your scores are marginal and you're just barely able to qualify, you may not, or it could work in the reverse depending on your credit history. If you before weren't able to qualify, you might now. If your scores are really high, you might see them come down a little bit, which isn't going to mean much in real terms because you'll still be able to qualify and get the credit you need. I don't expect big changes. If FICO created a score that suddenly said all of these people you approved before should not have been, that wouldn't make sense. It really would indicate that their scores weren't accurate, and that's not true. They're very predictive, very good scores. So I don't think we'll see big changes. FICO 10T is interesting. T stands for trended data. Scores up to this point have looked at a snapshot of your credit history at a moment in time. So you get your credit report and the lender scores it, or we send it to a third party and it gets scored. So at that point, it's just a snapshot of your credit report at that moment. If a couple of days later they get a new report, it would be a snapshot at that moment in time. Trended information is looking at payment behavior over time, which is going to be interesting and is a new way to look at credit histories and will help, again, identify potentially more people who should qualify who maybe didn't before, which is what lenders really want. They want to do business with you. Lenders don't want to say no, because that means they're not making any money. They're not making a loan. They're not getting paid interest. They want to make sure that if they can, give you a loan. So they're looking for ways to qualify and make sure that especially at the fringes of who might qualify in the past, maybe there are more people who should, and that's going to be positive for a lot of people, I think. And so it'll be interesting to see. It's a great question. 10 mixed accounts, that can be an issue. Dispute them as mixed. Make sure you say they're a mixed file or that they are confused with another person. They're not mine. And you can provide documentation. The most often we see that with fathers and sons who are juniors or seniors or seconds and thirds who forget to report that they're second or third or junior senior, that may share the same address, could have similar birth dates in terms of the day of the month, those sorts of things that could result in them being confused. So we're much, much better today than we were, say, 10 or 15 years ago in identifying those and separating them and keeping them separate. So make sure you let us know. And if you can upload documentation. If you have documentation, that helps us separate that as well. And we'll make sure we can get those separated and prevented. So the risk factor saying few credit accounts. So that's one to look at. That could be, open one or two. Doesn't mean 10 or 12. Start with one. Doesn't have to be a high limit. And then make a small purchase, pay it in full. So you've got that activity, because you need to have 3 to 6 months of activity in most cases before a new account will affect score. So that's that time thing again. So open a new account. It doesn't have to have a huge credit limit. Just make a small purchase, pay it in full, and give it several months, and then look and see what's happening. And you should see some improvement. Thank you so much for all of the wonderful questions and all of the great comments today. It's really about all of you being able to ask the questions that you need answered, and that's why I'm here. Please join us again. I'll be here. Actually, I'll be on Facebook Live tomorrow and on Crowdcast. Join us on Crowdcast. We're trying to build a community there. So look for us at Credit Chat Live on Crowdcast, as well as on Facebook Live tomorrow, Friday, 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern. And we'll be there. We're going to talk about whether or not it's a good idea to apply for credit now as we're going through COVID-19, and when it might be and when it might not, as well as answer your questions. So please join us. Hope to see you there. I'll try to be here Tuesday, 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern, as well as Thursday, 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern on Credit Chat Live on Periscope. And on Wednesdays, we're on Twitter on Credit Chat at 2 o'clock Central, 3 Eastern. You can learn more about our Credit Chat Live programs at ex.pn/Credit Chat Live, and about our Twitter programs, our Credit Chat at ex.pn/Credit Chat. Thanks for all of the hearts. Everybody, please stay well, stay safe, and I'll talk to you again very soon. Take care.